Hello Blazers, welcome to episode 49 of UAB Green and Told, original air date Monday, July 5th, 2021. Through this podcast, we are able to share stories from members of the UAB community. You can listen to all of our episodes on Spotify and the Apple Podcast app. While you're there, I'd love for you to leave a written review so we can reach more alumni. I'm Greg Berry, a UAB alum and Assistant Director in the UAB Office of Alumni Affairs. The University of Alabama at Birmingham has a long list of firsts. Dr. Joseph Volker, UAB's first president. The Pink Dragon, UAB's first official mascot. It's a list that goes on and gets added to every year. The list of firsts also includes UAB's first ever graduate. That distinction belongs to today's guest. As Dr. Ronald Acton will share, while he completed his studies over the summer, he had to wait a while to be handed his diploma.
I completed my doctoral requirements in August. It was signed off and everything, but they didn't have the actual first graduate from UAB until of course the next May.
Ronald will also reveal what the transition was like as UAB moved from an extension center to an autonomous university.
It was a very entrepreneurial situation that you could literally do whatever you want.
And Ronald remembers that first graduation, the one in which the alphabet cemented his spot in UAB history.
And Dr. Volker was adamant that everybody had to walk across the stage, and I thought we'd never get out of that auditorium down at the Battle Auditorium.
Ronald Acton has been a lifelong learner, making several stops along the way. While Ronald would wind up becoming UAB's first ever graduate, UAB wasn't his first stop after high school. In fact, UAB came after attending Montevallo, the Marion Military Institute, and Birmingham Southern. He was also part of UAB's transition from being an extension center to a standalone university.
I didn't find it any difference in terms of the quality of the education or anything from my undergraduate. At that time had gone to Montevallo and Marion Institute. I graduated, I was married, of course, and I graduated from Southern without having taken organic chemistry or calculus. So I entered in graduate school under probation, and my requirements was that I had to get off those courses that first year. Well, that resulted in quite a challenge, and I was taking the full load and still doing some research. In my view, I thought the instruction was very good.
What did we see in terms of the demographic of the students at the extension at UAB? Were they undergraduate? Were they graduate? What was the makeup?
When I first started there, a lot of people were like myself in that they were working during the daytime and taking courses at night. And during that period of time, you were able to get your engineering degree by taking all courses there at the Extension Center. I don't know of anyone when I was a graduate student that were taking courses at that time that were also graduate students, but a lot of older people, that had actually had come back or at least their college program was been disrupted for some reason, marriage and other reasons. One night, I actually ran into my football coach that had been one of my football coach in high school, and he was taking courses there to finish his doctorate. So it was just quite a variety of people at different age groups and educational levels.
So I assume you had friends that attended University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Did you have any idea what the main differences were between the two locations, being Tuscaloosa and Birmingham?
I really did not have any other indication with regard to the difference in terms of quality of whatever in instruction there at university compared to at the Extension Center or whatever. One thing that was, I think, was different was the fact that a lot of the initial, like freshman courses and all at the university, there'd be 100 in a class or so. Well, we had very small classes at the Extension Center. I suspect there never was over 30 or so people in any of the classes I took.
At some point in the late 60s, there was the discussion of, maybe Birmingham needs to be an autonomous institution, standalone. Do you remember any of those conversations or hearing anything about that?
Oh, yes. Well, one thing I did not know at the time, but the evolution in terms of administration, like Dr. Volker, had initially came to UAB as a dean of the dental school, started the dental school. Then he came vice president for the institution there and the health affairs and so forth. So I remember that time. And one of the things I do remember though about, and all throughout my career, it changed a lot as near the end. It was a very entrepreneurial situation that you could literally do whatever you want. So, you had that kind of environment where it was just sort of laissez-faire type situation. And you didn't have a lot of restrictions.
When the campus originally became campus, it became UAB, its own university. Everybody talks about building 1, 2, 3. What was campus actually like in 1969?
Well, where all coursework classrooms were at that time was, which is now the dental school building. At that time, that was the basic science building. And on the second floor, what you had on that floor is you had a little step up and you had 2 lecture halls, one on the right and one on the left. And one was for dental and one was for medical instruction. And so at that time, in graduate school, you took a lot of courses with dental students like biochemistry and histology and physiology and so forth. We would be in that same lecture hall with some of the medical students. That was the main focus, and then the labs were there, the biochemistry and in that building and microbiology. So it was all concentrated there. And then, of course, in the basement, well, not really the basement, you go into that building and you step down, but you enter there, and on the right was the cafeteria. Right on the other, straight ahead, was the post office. So that was the gathering place, all the faculty and students and everything. And so everybody would go there in the morning, get their mail, and go in and have coffee or breakfast or whatever. And so you knew them all. I mean, it wasn't any, even though you had not taken courses, you actually knew their name, faces, and they would speak. You'd speak to them if you saw them in the hall. You could go to any class or anything you wanted to, even as just a spectator. Volker Hall was built while I was gone. I was gone 3 years doing postdoctoral fellowships, and when I come back, and of course that moved the campus a little bit further than the library and all towards that direction.
When the transition happened from spring of 69 to the fall of 69, and then going into classes through 1970, what was that transition like? Was there any challenges? Could you notice anything different, or was it basically business as usual?
At that time, in that transition period, the commencement, of course, we didn't have a commencement in the fall. In the spring. I completed my doctoral requirements in August. It was signed off and everything, but they didn't have the actual first graduate from UAB until of course the next May. So I began a postdoctoral fellowship in clinical immunology and rheumatology. I didn't notice any transition other than the fact that a little bit prior to that, Dr. Barker had taken over the graduate school administration, if you will.
At what point did you realize that you were going to be the first official UAB graduate? Because there's nobody with last name Aaron, Abernathy, anything like that. It came down to Acton because they did it in alphabetical order.
And at that time, there was one entire graduation. It wasn't separated like today. Medical have theirs separate and so on and so on. And Dr. Boker was adamant that everybody had to walk across the stage. And I thought we'd never get out of that auditorium, down at the Battle Auditorium. I don't think I realized it, and it really didn't hit on me all that much until actually right at the end when we was getting ready to have the commencement. I guess, I don't know if the program had come out before that day or not, but I guess right at the very end. My degree is university in Birmingham, not at Birmingham. And it was a little old bitty diploma about the size, well, it was the size of the one I received from Birmingham Southern. And right across the street was a little building, I think it had been a doctor's office, where they had a photography and illustration department. Very small little thing, and they made up the diplomas. Today, the doctoral degrees are about 3 times larger than my little diploma I got at the first.
Let's look at the overall 60 plus years you've had with the university. When was the biggest change for the university? Was it athletics? Was it the construction boom of the last 15, 20 years? When was it, do you think?
Well, construction, was going on the whole time I was there, because we were building the Lyons Harrison building. And I remember one time, I think my wife said, I bet one of these days this campus will stretch our way to the interstate. Well, she was right. So there was construction continuously, the diabetes building and the Eye Foundation Hospital, everything was going on all around us at all times. So that being the case, you didn't really quite comprehend the magnitude of it sort of until, looking back afterwards, say, gosh, look at all this. There were a number of events that struck my mind. I mean, there were several. One was in terms of the medical side, recruitment of Dr. Kirkland, of course. That was a major, major event. The other things at that same time is when Dr. Durant obtained a comprehensive cancer center grant. Well, one of the requirements, the National Institute of Health requirements, was you had to be strong in the basic sciences related to cancer, of course, clinical, and public health and epidemiology and outreach. You had to have all those to be a comprehensive cancer center. And of course, UAB was one of the first 8 comprehensive cancer centers. What's interesting is from day one, when the medical center, when the medical college was transferred to UAB, the 2-year college, and it became a 4-year college, there was a continual need and sort of campaigning for funds and space.
You mentioned that the growth was really fast. Could you have imagined how fast, how rapid it grew, considering you were here in 65 and then graduating in 70? Could you have ever imagined the speed that the university has grown?
No, and when you're there, actively involved in all your activities and others things going on around, you're not as much aware of the magnitude. It didn't impact you as much as it does looking back historically on a timeline. And it was, it was actually amazing.
Where do you see UAB in 20, 25 years?
Greater. I hope it maintains its greatness. I have 2 reasons for that. I'm the first graduate. My wife graduated there and did her dietetic internship there. My son went there, and my daughter graduated medical school there, and she's a faculty member, a professor of pediatric infectious disease. So I have vested interest in that the well-being of the institution. It will not go down. I know that for a fact. We've got too many good people now, and it will continue to grow. There's no question about that because you got too many good people. So I see it even attain greater magnitude and recognition. To be a great institution, we also need greatness amongst the faculty at the undergraduate part of our school too.
What does it mean to you to be the first graduate of this institution?
Well, it means more to me now than it did when I graduated because it takes time for the impact, And I think it means a lot to my family. I know my daughter was attending a leadership internal conference, at UAB, and Tim Pennicuff, who I've really enjoyed working with on the archives, he gives this sort of history of UAB, and he shows a picture of me as the first graduate. And my daughter spoke up and said, "That's my dad." It means a lot, and now looking back more so than it did. But what really means as much, going back and looking at that over time, and what all the events and so forth as a student and then as a faculty member and all, that really means as much, or maybe more so than actually being the first, because being there to see it happen and see the greatness it attained and being a part of that. I mean, I did my part. That really, I look at that as my greatest legacy.
That's Dr. Ronald Acton, UAB's very first graduate. Dr. Acton was awarded his PhD from the Department of Microbiology as a part of the university's first ever commencement ceremony in 1970. While the Blazers didn't actually become the Blazers until 8 years later, Dr. Acton is still an original one, and he has his own idea of what it means to be a Blazer.
Well, I think it, again, adds to the recognition. Certainly, I think that the one thing the athletics will do is many people will, particularly as they have become more successful, will recognize the institution when you say the word Blazers than you say maybe University of Alabama at Birmingham. And so, yeah, I mean, I really, I have the emblems and my wife has the tag.
Be sure to listen into previous episodes of UAB Green and Told. You can find all of them at alumni.uab.edu/greenandtold. Have a story to share? Email greenandtold@uab.edu. Finally, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for UAB Alumni. Thanks for listening, and until next time, go Blazers.